Okay. Hello. Good morning. Good evening, whatever time zone that you happen to be in. Also, I'm sorry, I'm kind of crusty. I did brush my teeth this morning. I did wash my face. So, don't come for me. But, I don't know. Good morning. I hope that you're doing well. I hope you're staying hydrated. This is essentially going to be a video for the baby witches, people who are like developing their spirituality, getting into their divinity. And you don't have to call yourself a witch. I just want to make that clear. I might even label this as something non-witch related just to like trick some folks because excuse me, I have a lot of stuff in my throat. Because we all know that the word witch has a negative connotation. Like a lot of words have negative connotations, and this is one thing I'm going to say. If you're getting into spirituality, keep an open mind, but also stay grounded. Like, before I started recording this video, I knew I was going to say something about being grounded. I don't know if I said that in the previous baby witch advice video, but stay grounded. And what I mean by that is it's a very simple construct, or a simple concept, but it is also very abstract. In not so simple words, I would say make sure that you remain tethered to this 3D existence that we share. Make sure that you are keeping your feet planted on the ground, if you will, metaphorically, as you are diving into these subjects. Because some of these subjects will really have you going for a leap and really have you out in the stratosphere. And if you're not careful, you will get lost adrift and you will be one of those people on the side of the street yelling that the world is ending in 2 months. It's not funny, but like a majority of the time, these people are just people who have gone too far in one direction and did not manage to keep themselves grounded, you know? And we could probably also talk about external influences. I feel like we could definitely talk about that. Like, in my experience, the people that I've witnessed who are homeless, who are experiencing drug abuse, substance abuse, are people who are often born into families that either do not know how to like love them properly or like downright just like shower them in hate. Like, or just generally the people around them are just not the best individuals for them. You know, not to say that they're necessarily bad, because we could talk about duality also, but not to say that they're necessarily bad, but they're not good for the subject. And so over time that makes someone lose their mind. You know, like, one thing I'll say is that it's really important that you be mindful of the connections that you have in your life. Like, if you find yourself being like a closet witch or like hiding your practices, you're in the wrong environment and you're around the wrong people. Like, I know that's harsh. And I know some of you, like, you're dealing with families and stuff like that. But that's the truth. I'm going to turn around. It's starting to get windy. Thankfully, this camera has really great audio quality. Also, since I'm saying thank you, let me go back to something I said in the previous video. Gratitude is so important. Like, I think as a spiritual concept, as a rule, as a law, like, it is so necessary to be grateful. Like, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to feel anything. This is just a suggestion. This is just a guide. But I think, honestly, it is like a necessity. Like, if you cannot practice gratitude on a daily basis, like, you're not going to genuinely enjoy your manifestations. Like, whatever you're manifesting, whatever you're trying to conjure up in your life, you're not going to enjoy it because, like, you never took time to appreciate it. You just kind of were like, I have this now. And, like, I would say, probably, maybe I'm talking out my ass, but 9 times out of 10, the people who do not express gratitude, do not hold gratitude often, are often the ones who are manifesting like superficial things and things out of like necessity rather than enjoyment, which is not inherently good or bad, but we could talk about like the enjoyment process of it, part of it all. Like, if you're not enjoying it, what are we doing? Like, I don't know. Sure, win the game, do what you need to do. But me personally, I have the philosophy of like, by the time I end my life, I want to have lived a life that I can look back and say, that was awesome. Like, I don't really care what other people have to say or think about my life. Like, obviously I want to make an impact. Obviously I want to reach people. Oh my god, that wind is beautiful and chilly and strong. Oh my goodness. Obviously I want to make an impact with people. Obviously I want to make a difference. But it's my life at the end of the day. You know, my lips are so chapped, I hate it. It's my life. And so I want to be proud of myself. And this is something I would impart upon anybody looking for guidance. Like, please, please, please check yourself and make sure that you're looking for yourself. Like, if there are people that depend on you, sure, take them into account. But like, generally, it's your life. Like, outside of those people, like, it's your life. You know? So that's something to be said. And since I'm talking about the self, I guess I could also say that like a really big thing is that you make sure that you understand who you are, like on a physical level, but also on like a non-physical level. Like, who are you? Like, what do you enjoy? You know, it's crazy to think that a lot of people, like, if you ask them that question, they really have to stop and think because they haven't taken the time to think about what they enjoy outside of work, outside of friends, outside of whatever. And it's like, please prioritize self. Like, and don't get me wrong, I think it is a very powerful type of magic, the selfless kind. Like, if you're using your witch abilities, your spiritual abilities for the sake of others, I think that's a very beautiful thing. Like, we could be friends if you use your work like that. But it is close to impossible to do anything for anyone if you yourself are shattered into pieces, if you yourself are dehydrated and lacking in inspiration. Like, you know what I mean? Like, at some point you have to like prioritize yourself and you have to focus on self. And this is also coming from somebody with a Libra ascendant. And if you know anything about Libra, you know that it is a very relationship oriented sign. It's a very like people person sort of energy. And I was talking about this in one of my previous videos, I don't know. But like, my astrology is very interesting, I think. Excuse me. I'm gonna turn around. Also, it's a really nice day weather-wise, I think. For sure. It's currently like 8 o'clock in the morning, almost 8 o'clock in the morning. If not, it's like right after 8. I don't know. I can't really see the time because I'm recording. But also, this isn't really advice per se. This is just an experiential moment. When I first went through psychosis, my concept of time had shifted so drastically, at least within the period that I was like losing my mind. Because like, I remember like the clocks in my parents' house were like, there were like 4 different clocks in like a certain area. Like, it was like downstairs in the kitchen or whatever. And I remember they were like slightly off from one another. And so one said like maybe 10 o'clock, the other said 10:01, the other said 10:02. And so like, I'm like having all these delusions, having all these thoughts. And then also on top of that, like, I was like having that moment where I was like, what is time? And like, I really had a moment where I was like, time is crazy. Like, and I genuinely, wholeheartedly believe that we can time travel with our minds. And I wholeheartedly believe that I have, and you can think I'm crazy, you can think whatever the fuck you want, but I know my reality. But, excuse me, but I'm open to being wrong, which I will like emphasize on in a minute. It's okay to be wrong, but that is how you learn. Anyway, What was I saying? What was I about to say? I forgot what I was about to say. Oh, time travel. I definitely feel like I've sent myself energy to the past, if that makes sense. Like, I definitely have actively sent energy towards the past version of me, if that makes any sense. Like, and there's no like super duper concrete. I mean, there's probably a way. I'm pretty sure there's a way to like conceptualize of how to like have concrete evidence for this, but there's no concrete evidence for like what I'm saying. But it just, I don't know, because like everything is energy. Thoughts are energy, emotions are energy, you know. And so when you think about it like that, it's like, so why can't I send that energy to another point in time? You know, like, I don't know, that's just the way my brain's always worked. My brain has always been like out of the box and like, you know, how can we do this differently? How can we look at this differently? And sometimes it pisses people off. Sometimes people are like, that's just the way it is. You can't fix it with thinking. I'm like, maybe you can't, but, you know? So once again, think outside the box. And then, like I said, it's okay to be wrong. Like, if you have a big ego and you like have a hard time being wrong, if you find yourself being literally offended when people tell you you're incorrect, I'm gonna need you to tone that down. I would need you to not do that. I don't believe that. How do I say this? Also, sorry for licking my lips. I feel like I look really gross today. I think that it's funny because I'm about to talk about ego and I'm like, my vanity. But I don't think any good work comes out of the ego. I don't think it's possible. I mean, I'm speaking in definites, like, don't clock me. But it's very difficult, I'll say, to manifest good results when you're working from the ego. Like, maybe I'm wrong, but like, I don't know. And maybe it'll satisfy your ego. But like, once you get beneath that, it's like, okay, then what? And big piece of advice. Please work on your ego. Please work on your shadow self and like those ugly parts of yourself. If you don't know what the shadow is, it's basically a psychological, spiritual concept. I think coined by Carl Jung. I love Carl Jung's work. Don't clock me. But it talks about the shadow basically being like the unconscious self, the part of us that we kind of like push down, we hide for one reason or another. Maybe we were ridiculed for being too smart. Maybe we were bullied for being too confident or too shy or whatever, and like, so we push that part of us down so that we could fit in, so we could feel good. Now personally, I never really got into that stuff. And when I say that stuff, I mean like being super in my ego. Like, I've never really, I don't know, like, I've always, since a young age, and I've talked about this in previous videos, I've always had the mindset of like deconstructing and like reconfiguring and like looking at it from different perspectives. Like, that's just how I operate, you know? And I would definitely urge you to adopt that mindset and to just, I feel like I already said this, but like, be open to like different perspectives. Like, because, and this might be a hard thing to swallow, this might be a hard thing to adopt, but there is no such thing as right or wrong. Like, sure, there's morality, sure, there's ethics, and we could debate that. But at the end of the day, there's only action and non-action. Is what I don't know why I heard it like that. That was like a download. But like, there's only action and non-action. And even sometimes I guess that non-action could still be action. But like, the point is, what I'm saying is like, what was I saying? I don't remember what I was saying. Don't do drugs, kids. Also, I would definitely urge you to not get into recreational drugs. And I'm being a hypocrite when I say this because I am very much so a fan of 420. Like, I actually smoked right before I recorded this. And I would highly recommend that you stay away from substances. Like, I know way too well how it's kind of like negatively impacted my abilities, my way of navigating the world. Like, I know, like, I don't let it too much. I don't try to look at it that way, but I know that it has. Like, technically, I know that my memory is not the best because of it. Like, and like, it definitely like influences my psychic abilities and whatnot. Like, the way that it manifests in my body, if that makes any sense. But okay, no, what I was saying, right and wrong. I remembered, like they flashed in my head. There's no such thing as right or wrong. The only thing that there is action and non-action. And within those actions, we perceive them to be good or bad. And maybe that wasn't really the most accurate way to say that, action and non-action. Personally, I don't think that. I feel like my guides are like talking to me heavy right now, and I'm like, hey, what's up? I might have to meditate on that in my personal time because I'm thinking about the action versus non-action thing, and I'm like, Anyways, yeah, there's no such thing as good or bad. It's only how you perceive it. But I will say, I think a lot of spiritualists will agree that there's like a sort of code of like what goes around comes around, what you put out into the atmosphere comes back to you. And so I'm not necessarily advocating for like black magic or like whatever. And also I'm going to get into the semantics of that. But I will say that your intention is really what matters most of all when it comes to like the morality, the ethics of stuff like this. I'm not a huge proponent of curses and hexes, but I have found myself doing them, and I made sure to do them with like loving kindness, if that makes sense. Like the last time I did it, I've only ever done it a few times, if even more than 3. I don't know. But the last time I did it was fairly recently. It was like within the last month or so. And essentially, to give some context, there was a situation that I was having with somebody at the place that I'm living, and I tried to squash it through a person who was connected to them. I tried to squash it. That didn't really work the way that I wanted it to, and I don't even know. I wasn't even expecting it to work or anything. I just kind of was like, I need to squash this. But I wish I did think it through more. I don't know. But I tried to squash it, and that didn't work. It kind of made it worse, I think. And so I took the time to go into meditation one day while I was on the bike. Also, I'm not on a bike today. There's no bike today. I made sure to go into meditation, and I was like, with all the love in my heart, like, I want to, like, I don't know if it was like a return to sender sort of energy, but it was just like I want them to understand that what is going on is not okay. You know, like I want them to understand that like the way that they're behaving is not okay. And I don't want to give too many details. I've talked about it before in videos, but like it was just kind of like, from my perspective, it was just like super unreasonable behavior, like what was going down. And I'm a pretty peaceful person. I don't like to cause drama. I like stay to myself most of the time. And so for you to come into my space and like purposely mess up my equilibrium because you have a problem with me that you can't even communicate, that isn't even, has nothing to do with me, you know what I'm saying? And so like after trying to squash it, I was just like, okay, no, death to you all. No, I'm kidding. But I do be working with energies like that. And like, once again, I like to work with a strong heart center. in all that I do. So once again, I was like, guides, gods, source, beloved, please be here with me with this decision. And if I'm wrong, okay, you got it. But like, I want to do something, and so I did that, and I also with the intention of like, I hope that they learn. Like, I'm never about just like, let's just unnecessarily harm people. Like, no, like, you need to fucking learn. Like, there's a lesson. Like, there's a reason for the pain. It's not just to have pain. Also, another thing. Also, we have a feather. This is a beautiful synchronicity. I've low-key gotten used to stuff like this, so they don't really show up as much. There's like a flock of birds, though, right now. I've kind of gotten used to the synchronicities because they started happening so much. Like, it just became a natural occurrence for me. I still try to practice gratitude when I see them because it's cool. It's cool when, you know, the numbers all like pop up a certain way and like whatnot and what forth, and it's beautiful. I like it. Like with my Libra ascendant, I like to shower in the beauty of life, if that doesn't sound too wax poetic. But what was I saying? I don't remember what I was saying. Also, meditation is really important. And I don't know, I feel like there's like two sides of me because I give myself so much like shit for like not doing more. But then I realize I'm doing a lot more than the average person. So, you know, and I say that to say I made it a point to start meditating more, like every day, like go into meditation mode. And I was doing pretty good, I guess. I didn't really, because I'm talking about like official meditation sessions, like sitting down, being in the position, closing your eyes, taking the breaths, and like being fully in the moment. Like, that's what I mean. Not like just like laying in your bed and just being in a meditative space. That's not necessarily the same thing, I think. But I'm always I kind of always find myself in a meditative space. So that's where I'm saying like I'm being too hard on myself, because I take time to go within all the time, like every day, like just naturally. Like there's just points where I'm like, okay, let me go within, let me give gratitude, let me say thanks, let me say hey to my gods or whatever, you know, like that's another thing. I think it's really important that you genuinely make it a part of your routine. Like, it has to be something that just doesn't, like, it wouldn't make sense if you didn't do it. Like, you know, like, and I'm going to be transparent here and once again say that I haven't really been the most consistent in my own practice. I love crystals. I think they're pretty. Once again, that Libra ascendant is very strong in my spirituality, I think. But I love crystals. It was like one of the first things I got into. And I have crystals. And I like to, when I wake up, water them. Like, put water over them, cleanse them, whatever. And like maybe put intention into them. And I used to do that like every single day. And I don't know, whenever I talk about this, it's always interesting, I think, for me, because I'm like, what does that say about me? Does that just mean I need to be in fight or flight mode to like really get serious about life? I don't know. But when I was homeless, that's when I was like most devout, I think, to my spirituality. And it was like a sort of defense, because I realized how scary it was out there, and I was like, I need to protect myself. And like, I was like, what do I already have? Spirituality, philosophy, the mind. And so I was really deep into that, like every single day, every day when I woke up at the shelter, or even if I was sleeping on the streets, because at some point I was just sleeping on the streets and toughed it out. And I made sure every day to, like, when I got up, I prayed, I connected with my gods, I connected with my chakras, and I like aligned like every single day, like without fail. And like also before I went to sleep, like it was like a ritual. And I didn't tell anybody about it. It wasn't like something I was like super like open about necessarily. I just did it. At some point I was writing letters, and it was just a part of my routine. It just felt natural. And it has to be like a routine, like even when you don't feel like it. And some people say, and I definitely agree, when you feel like doing it the least is sometimes when you need to do it the most. When you don't feel like taking that jog, when you don't feel like doing your affirmations, doing your mirror work, that's when you need to do it the most. You know what I mean? And I'm saying this and I know I need to apply it because I don't journal every day. I used to journal every day. Once again, I was the most consistent and the most rigid with my spiritual routine when I was homeless, when I was facing that shit, because it was like a defense. And I was like, I need to do more. And I'm very thankful for those moments because it genuinely gave me a sense of refreshment and purpose and motivation, when I tell you I was hopping out of that bed at the shelter every morning. I was some days I had those moments where I was less full of energy and it was harder to get up, but generally I think because of my connection to source, I just always was so full of energy. And we could talk about substance abuse. Because this is why I say I don't recommend you get into any sort of substances, any sort of drugs, while you're still learning, because that can be very dangerous. It can definitely lead us into psychosis. So this is something to be aware of. And what was I about to say? I don't remember what I was about to say, but what was I about to say? Fuck. Talk about the substances, and substances made me lose my mind. No, I'm kidding. Also another thing, which I've kind of fell off on, but I will preach about it because it's important, it's necessary. The power of your words. Even in jest, the things that you say to yourself, the things that you think to yourself are very powerful. And when you realize that, when you see the effects of that, ideally you should be using your words more carefully. I'm a Gemini. Sometimes I have word vomit. Sometimes I just say things. But knowing what I know, I still try to tune into my mind and my thoughts and be particular about that, even when I'm word vomiting. You know what I mean? And I think it's really necessary. And I guess that leads me into another thing. Your mind is so precious. Take care of your mind and everything else will follow. I fully fuck with the Hermeticism teachings, the idea that the mind is all and that everything connects back to the mind. There's other tenets to it, but that's kind of the basis, that the mind is all. And it was Trismegistus. I recently started saying his name. Whenever I thought about the concept or talked about it, I never really mentioned him, but that was the person who, Trismegistus is how you say it, I think, way back in the days. Also, I'm thinking of Socrates, which I guess for the third time I'm going to reiterate, question everything. Be open to changing your mind, be open to being wrong. That's how you learn, that's how you grow. Okay, so with that, I'm going to leave you on this note. I'm going to leave you with that one and say that you should stay hydrated, as I should. I should definitely drink some water. Stay blessed, stay beautiful, and stay safe. Bye.